We're joined right now by Marcus Surdevant, and you are a financial planner, or
Yeah,
how
so
would you describe yourself?
I am by trade, I'm a financial advisor. And
Okay.
yeah, so I am, don't put
And,
this on the
and you
recording.
deal a lot with financial literacy,
I do. I'm a
which is
financial.
a big topic that doesn't get nearly the attention it should. Everybody says, well, there should be more financial literacy training, but nobody other than you, perhaps, is doing much about it. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into this niche.
Gotcha. Yeah, so just a little bit about me. I'm born down here. I'm from North Carolina in the 80s, grew up in the 80s. Single mom, home, grew up, went to school around here local. I'm back down in Charlotte, went to college, had some kids, got married, did that thing in no particular order. Got into the financial literacy. I was financially illiterate myself, actually. So as we started to approach later in life, it was actually one of my jobs where I first was approached with a 401k. So maybe 20 years ago, I started looking into financial literacy and trying to understand those things. And I just saw that it was a conversation I never had in my house growing up. And as I spoke with folks in general, more people seem to not have this conversation as well. It's a topic that stretches across demographics. So
Okay, so you didn't learn about money at a early age. It was kind of school of hard knocks, maybe.
it was School of Hard Knocks. Like I said, I grew up, my mom was working. So I started working when I was like 14, like a W-2 job over at a Winn-Dixie. I don't know if anyone knows what Winn-Dixie is. Maybe dating myself, but just to earn money. And I always like earning money on my own, just to kind of have some money. I always tell people if I knew what I knew then now, I would be retired already if I started saving, when I started working at 14. So
Yeah. Well, one of the reason I wanted to talk to you is that you take a holistic approach to financial literacy. It's not like just finances, but you see it as this impacts your entire life and how you live your life. Can you expound on that a little bit?
well, yeah, it definitely impacts my life because I've seen how it impacted other people's lives. As far as like I said, I'm a financial advisor by trade. So when I'm working with clients, I would see the results as we just sit down and have the conversation. Sometimes are, when people don't understand things, they generally say no, and you can miss out on opportunities by just saying no, by not understanding what someone is saying. People just don't understand the value of owning homes, the value of credit, the value of debt, the value of how to use credit or debt. So it's just the mission just to explain to people as few or as many as I can reach and help because I know these things have impact.
And and if someone feels like their life is messed up in other areas, family or a job, uh, maybe it's because they don't know how to handle their money, right?
Exactly. Oh yeah, money's definitely a big cause of stressors in families. It was one of the number one causes for divorce, financial problems. You find sitting down talking with people could be married 20, 30 years and not really understand each other's views of money, where they plan on getting to once they're in retirement. People be close to retirement coming up on 50, 55, and this in that uh, red zone, close to where you can retire, and they don't really understand it. And that can be shocking. And that's kind of
And
disappointing.
and that's important when you are selecting I've read somewhere where a dating ritual early on should be, what's your credit score? You should know what you're
Yeah,
getting into, uh,
exactly.
because you know a bad credit score, and I'm not making judgments here, but it seems like it's somebody's not in control of their life if life is controlling them, if they have a bad credit score. And many people, I think, don't even understand what goes into a credit score. Can you explain a little bit, how credit score is determined?
Yeah, so a credit score is several determining factors. One is your on-time payments. That's one of the most important. parts that you pay your bills that you do have on time, your debt to credit ratio, your income amount, your, like I said, your history of payments, and those are the heavy factors in there. I'm pulling up a slide real quick. But one of the things people can do to get started with that is simply just pay your bills on time.
Right. That is the big one. Um, and not maxing out your credit card. I mean, they look at, I believe they look at the percentage of your available credit that you're using. So if you have a $10,000 uh, credit limit and you've got an $8,000 balance, then you're using 80% of your available credit. Um, and let's talk a little bit about how somebody gets an $8,000 credit card balance. Um, because it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
Well, it usually doesn't happen overnight, but it could. Someone could
Yeah,
get a credit card. I remember when I was growing up, they could send you credit cards that were actually active credit cards. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think there have been
yeah,
some legislation that has changed that. So you can get a credit card that with $1,000 limit with someone who does not understand credit. They're just going to go spend it,
yeah,
right? Because they don't understand the consequences of not paying it back. So you can spend $8,000 on a credit card in a lot of, I want to say, I don't want to say stupid, but silly ways, frivolous ways. Right.
right. Without a lot of thought. I mean, it's one thing to use, well, talk about how you should use a credit card.
Right. Perfect example. My wife, Brittany. So she takes the credit card and she has rewards on her credit card. Takes her credit card. She pays for pretty much everything with her credit card. She's done this her whole life before we got together. And she pays it off at the end of the month. So she never pays interest. That credit card companies hate people who do not pay interest. So if you can afford to pay whatever you're going to spend on your credit card and you're getting a cash back reward, or if you travel, find a credit card that does reward points, um, then you can use those things to balance out some of the costs as well. And if you're not paying interest on a credit card, then it's also a great perk. Interest is what kills you in
Yeah.
credit
You
cards.
know, there's good debt and bad debt, or what I call toxic debt. You know, credit card debt is toxic because it's 20% interest. Um, but, you know, a mortgage on a home might be, you know, a good way to, I mean, that might be good debt because you got to spend something for housing, as long as it's, you know, affordable and you can manage it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. You were telling me that you had done some volunteer work with a financial literacy course. Was that in schools or where was that?
No, so it was with a foundation called the Kaizen Foundation in North Carolina, down here outside Charlotte. So what we do is we put together. They actually were starting the course before I joined volunteering. So I jumped in with them, helped create some of the curriculum for the next course. What we do is this is actually with adults. So we have people ranging from like 20 to I think some of those people we saw in the class were maybe like 60. And so it's a wide range of what we cover. We start with SMART goals in the course. It's like a 6-week course. First course is SMART goals. So we want to have people setting smart, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timeable goals, measurable goals as well. Then we go into debt. We go into retirement planning. We recap all this stuff. So we're having weekly meetings. We have experts on each topic in there. And we really take the course from a 50,000-foot high level, right? We're just talking about kind of like you said, what's a credit score composed of? And then we offer one-on-one sessions with one of our experts for folks who want to take it a level different. And we do all that, no cost. We're not out there
And
charging.
so the participants in the course, I mean, they voluntarily take part. You don't have to convince them, in other words. They're not a captive audience. These are people who want that information, correct?
Right. Yeah, they're not captive. I'm not exactly sure how they get there, but I know the people who are in there, that's more of our president's job and our board's job. They pull the people, they coordinate with local nonprofits around the area to work together as well. But yes, the people who have been in the class have been very receptive, man. They're very eager to learn. Like they're definitely making changes. Some of them reached
That
out and
seems
sat
like
down.
an extremely important thing. If you're forcing it on someone,
Hmm.
there, I've heard it said that schools should teach financial literacy, and they probably should, but not all students would be receptive, and they would, it might fall on deaf ears. It's important if the student or whoever is taking the course is like, I want this information, I want to know. Um, and and it's interesting that you said there was a wide demographic, from 20s to 60. Um, what are the goals? How do the goals different in those ages, would you say?
All right. So with the goals, let me address one thing you said before. So as far as people, people can't understand what they've never had, right? So if they've never tasted it, they won't realize that they like it. So this
Yeah.
financial literacy, they might not, as far as like in the school systems. I think it should be mandatory to every high school at least. You should take some kind of financial literacy course where you have to. North Carolina has it now. Several states have that now, where you have to take financial literacy to graduate. On to your question, people, like I said, we covered inside the retirement planner where I was speaking. We started with, like you said, we started with credit scores. We actually start with mindset because a lot of it is in your mind. People just don't believe that they can achieve the same things that people they see on TV have achieved. They see people with, or people even in their own neighborhood, the Joneses, as we say, keeping up with the Joneses. They don't think they can achieve that. But the Joneses probably just saved up, you know, put money into their retirement plan, spent less than they earned, and just saw an accumulation. The clients or the people inside of the course, they would ask from things like setting up 401ks, because some of them didn't even have 401k set up right, how the match works. People closer to retirement are trying to figure out ways to get closer to that number because usually people who are close to retirement realize like, oh, I'm at a shortfall.
Yeah. And, somebody in their 20s, they have a very long runway ahead of them. Someone in their late 50s, early 60s who have not saved, who have not had good habits, they're frightened because retirement age is coming up, and that happens to a lot of people. You think about the baby boom generation that, oh, that generation has had years and years and they're well off, and many are, but many aren't because of poor decisions. And but is it too late for them?
Definitely not too late for anyone. You need to get started. Time, time in the market is more important than time in the market. Baby boomers in our generation, my generation now, uh, they came from an era where one, the dollar was the standard. So the fiscal policy and monetary stabilization was better. You had pension plans where when people retired with pension plans, they were pretty much set up for life once they annuitized them. That got traded out for 401k plans. So people aren't necessarily getting as much retirement money from their 401k because they're not realizing that they're going to be short. People just think that they can retire with Social Security, which is a really big problem in this industry, big problem in the world.
Yeah.
I see it as close as my own family. I've seen people who just thought that they could retire because they reached a certain age and just took whatever they have and they're struggling sometimes they have to go back to work. It's just things you don't want to see. So it's never too late. That's the moral of the story. They're changing laws now where they just increased the catch-up limits, the catch-up contribution limits for people over 50. So there is a way. You might need to sit down with a financial advisor or a professional and figure out how to get there. If you're behind the eight ball, it's probably going to be a lot harder to get where you want to get than someone who's 20 who can take volatility, ups and downs in the market. Because at this age, if you're closer to retirement, you're going to need something that's probably safer and still try to expect the returns. And you're
Yeah.
probably should plan on working longer.
Um, and working longer is I'm a good example of that. I'm past retirement age, but I enjoy what I do,
Hmm.
and so why not keep doing it? Um, talk a little bit about how COVID um, put a lot of people sort of behind the eight ball because the government was sending out big checks, and it's easy to think that that's going to go on forever, and maybe you think some bad habits were formed during that time?
Exactly. So yes, I do. With COVID, I like to say Main Street meets Wall Street. With COVID, Main Street are the general people, population, people like myself and you. Uh, Once they lowered interest rates to zero, money was free. So money started going out. They literally sent stimulus checks out to people. So people felt like you said, that the money was not going to end. People were doing silly things with money, investing in crazy investments. People started getting more financial literate in stocks. But the problem with that is, in this age that we are in now, this technology age, you have to be careful of the information you're getting, the sources you're getting it from. So people thought that, okay, I'm getting more money down here on Main Street. I have more money to spend. This is better for me. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, the government, I'm assuming Jerome Powell realized that we cannot keep interest rates at zero forever, because that has a negative effect. Eventually, I'll have a negative effect on our dollar, which is the currency of the world. People are not going to get any money on the money that they're saving aside savings accounts, right? So you don't want interest rates at zero for that reason. And corporations, they were borrowing money at that time that they're putting way off, 30, 40 years that they're going to pay back. But now they're going to have to pay those bonds back. They're refinancing those bonds, just getting different types of money. So yeah, interest rates are very, very important.
And what low interest rates did to the housing market. It really inflated the price of homes. I think the median priced home now is over $400,000. And, when the median priced home was $200,000, a 7% mortgage rate was not a problem. But it is when homes are that expensive. So a lot of people are dealing with, um, and if you bought a house during that period and paid an inflated price, you certainly don't want the price to go down, because that causes problems.
Exactly. And I think with the interest rates that are coming up, I don't know if the Fed's going to do as many cuts as they projected this year. Maybe they won't have any cuts. That would be a bold predicament. Maybe they raise interest rates. We really don't know. It seems like the Fed doesn't know. It seems like their moving real rate is moving. They're chasing it with the inflation numbers coming down as well. So yes, this inflation is going to stick around for a little while. This is, believe it or not, like a normal rate of inflation. Like if you
Yeah.
look back historically, right? This is more normal. I think if it gets closer to 5% on these bonds, which it might do today after this jobs number, people are going to start to feel it in the equity side, just because then people who are closer to retirement, who have been planning this, are like, oh, I can get close to what I'm going to get in the S&P projected earnings growth and save money and not have to deal with the volatility.
Yeah. Okay, someone who's listened to our conversation and has been intrigued by the idea of financial literacy, where do they turn for help?
There's a lot of programs online. Just you can look up financial literacy and start looking. You can look me up if you want. I'm on LinkedIn, Marcus Sturdivant Senior. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. That'll be a good place to connect. The Kaizen Foundation, North Carolina. You can look us up there. We can. That'll be a good place to find us. Uh, there are more people than you think who are starting to have this conversation,
Are there
right?
national organizations that you like, or is it just going to vary?
There are definitely national organizations who do research and studies. There are world organizations who do studies on financial literacy. I'm not going to recommend anyone in particular right now. I can
Yeah.
give you one later. I will state that one of the World Global Financial Literacy Funds did a study of countries ranked in financial literacy. And the United States, where do you think we rank?
Oh, 12th?
Pretty close. We were 14th.
Oh, okay.
14th with like a 50 some odd percent score. The top score was like 71%. So, and some of the base questions they asked, we don't have to answer them right now, was if you took $100 and invested it in an account and you gained 2% a year, how much would you have at the end of that? Another question was, would you rather invest in a single stock or a mutual fund? And then another question was around home ownership. So just kind of
Yeah.
basic questions. And most people couldn't answer all three.
Yeah. In our previous discussion, you had mentioned home ownership as an important factor that could, why is that?
Well, right, like you said earlier in the conversation, people have to live somewhere. There are very few situations where I would tell someone not to buy a home. If you're in a situation where you move a lot, like a traveling nurse or something like that, where you're not going to be in one location, maybe you don't need a home. But pretty much other than that, or I would suggest you have a home. Or if you need like assistant living, which is another thing people should take a look at, long-term care that is growing in this generation as we have this generational shift, money transfer from this generation to the next generation, but home ownership in general. So you buy your home, you make your down payment. You got to think of it as every time you pay your mortgage, you are paying yourself. You're putting the equity back into your house. The housing market, like you said, inflated housing prices. So if you bought a home before the housing prices went up, you're increasing your equity that way as well,
Hmm.
right? So you can look at your home, and I don't really suggest people do home equity lines unless you need it. If you need a loan, it's not a bad way to look at it. You always got to look at all the options, but you could pull money from your home if need be, and you're just taking a loan from yourself, probably at better interest rate than you're going to get from the bank.
Yeah.
So your home's an asset. Your home could be a mindset thing too as well. Another thing, people just know that they have somewhere to come back to. It's one of the biggest things that helps to create generational wealth.
Okay,
I'm
Marvin,
willing to have it
Marcus,
with
it was
anyone.
great talking to you and very informative. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark.